Hello, everyone. Welcome to State of the Auction. In each episode, we'll gather around the virtual auction block to share captivating stories, upcoming auction highlights, and exclusive interviews with industry experts from the heartland of the Midwest. With a casual and friendly atmosphere, we hope to entertain, inform, and leave you eagerly anticipating the next episode. So buckle up, tune in, and join us on this exciting journey as we navigate the ever-evolving landscape of auctions, one episode at a time. My name is Reed. I'm the new guy over at Resource Auction, and I'll be a mediator of sorts and kind of facilitate the conversation between these industry experts. For this episode, I would like to introduce you to three of the Resource Auction's biggest and best contributors. These guys have been around the auction block a time or two. Without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Dennis Beliski, Tom Kalick, and David Gorder.
Thanks, Reed.
Thank you,
Good
Reed.
afternoon, gentlemen.
Yeah, thank you. Good to see you guys.
Yeah, if you guys just want to start off with telling everyone a little bit about yourself, that'd be awesome. Start off with Tom over here.
Yeah, I'm Tom Kellogg from Oslo, Minnesota. I originally, I guess I've been a farmer for 40-some years and got talked into Dennis to come in here and help me a little bit about 10 years ago, and kind of changed my life doing the auction business, and really enjoy it and have a passion for it. And learned a lot of good stuff from Dennis here, and really enjoy it. I'm married, have a wife and 3 kids and four grandkids now, so awesome. Things are looking great.
Yeah.
Like it.
Yeah, how did you guys end up meeting? Yeah.
We've known each other for decades.
1985, I think I was at one of Dennis's first sales.
Probably so, but yeah, Tom was a farmer in the Red River Valley, and of course, we, having done auctions all throughout the region, got to know him very well, and he's always been a good friend and good client and good customer. And when we saw a need to fill a position, somebody said, maybe you should ask Tom, and we did that, and is actually a fellow employee that helped bring Tom on board and ended up being a good decision.
Awesome. Yeah, and then we'll go over to David, if you just want to introduce yourself a little bit.
Yeah, I'm David Gorder. I'm from Grand Forks, North Dakota. Got into the auction world 2016. I got my auctioneer's license down in St. Louis, Missouri Auction School. My wife and I started a farmland real estate company called the Farm Agency in 2018.
Okay.
Got into doing farmland auctions that way. And Dennis approached us in 2020. And it was a good way for Dennis to get back into the real estate side of things, start selling farmland. So we stepped in and partnered on the farmland business and in the equipment auction business. So that was my entry into the equipment auction. So it's been about 2.5 years now. Learned a lot from Dennis, Tom, and the whole team, and it's been a lot of fun and learning every day. Everything's constantly changing.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. And then finally, we'll do Dennis.
I just want to take you back about 4 minutes to the intro music, and I want you to know that it was David on the guitar, Tom on the bass, Reed held the microphone, and I was the one that was whistling. So if you like that intro music, that was a collaborative effort.
Yeah, we're still working on the band name, so any
Yeah.
ideas appreciated.
Well, something comes to mind, but we probably better not bring it
Nuts
out
and
live here.
bolts.
We'll hold on to it to the next episode. No, you know something, auctions are an interesting and ever-changing business. I'm nearly 4 decades into this business. I started when I was a high school junior, went to auction school in Mason City, Iowa when I was still in high school, and have conducted auctions in 7 different countries, at least 10 different states, and have been involved in all sorts of auction politics, meaning state and national auctioneers associations, different contests. I'm a member of the Hall of Fame, the North Dakota Auctioneers Association, and the Minnesota State Auctioneers Association, champion auctioneer in both those states, and been very well privileged and pleased to have had a good go at this business, and learned early on as a first-generation auctioneer that we had to break the mold. We always had to do something different and better than what everybody else was doing, because as a young man getting into this business, I had to learn everything from the ground up, and that meant that we had a lot of advantages over people that were in business at the time, because everything that we were bringing to the table was fresh and new, and we're always hoping that we can continue to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. I guess first things first, I was kind of curious, where did you kind of touched on it a little bit, but kind of where did your passion for auctioning and stuff come from?
My dad was an auction aficionado. He went to every type of auction there was. He was a cattleman, so we went to livestock auctions. He was a horseman. We went to horse auctions. He liked to buy and sell machinery, so we always went to equipment auctions. And from an early age, probably I suppose when I was just old enough to be held and drug around, he took me to auctions, and he lived vicariously through me and told me for many years that he probably thought I should be an auctioneer because that would be at that time, better future than farming, and we could combination those into a good living for everyone. And I did that. I soon learned how to be an auctioneer. I listened to what auctioneers were doing. I saw what was going on, and every auction that we left, he would give me the lowdown on the way home about everything that was done right and everything that was done wrong. And sooner or later, it just rubbed off on me. When I got old enough to start my own gig, we went out and did it, and we put all those things to use that he had taught me and told me and resourced in me. And here we are today, almost 40 years later.
Yeah. Awesome.
So your dad took you to all these auctions, and you become a teenager. You see an opportunity. What was that first auction? What was the genesis of that? How did that all happen?
First auction was a pretty interesting situation because, like anything, when you're trying to get started out in business, you're the new guy, and everybody's going to take a second look at you. And I won't name names or businesses in terms of people that gave us our first opportunity, but it just so happened that I walked into an opportunity. And it's probably old enough now where I can discuss it a little bit, but it was a financial institution. And I had stopped there many times, handing out my business card. And Tom knows his story, and he knows what I'm talking about. He's got a big smile on his face. But nonetheless, walked into this place of business. It was a lending institution. And the lady at the counter said, "You're that young auctioneer, aren't you?" I said, "I am." She said, "I think he might want to see you today." And I said, "Okay," because this guy had been giving me the brush off for a long time. And she said, "Just stay there." Guy walks out of the back office, and he said, "Come in here." So I walked into the office with him, and he had a gentleman with him, and he said, "You're the auctioneer, you're the client." He said, "We need to discuss putting together an auction today." And he looked at me and he said, "I hope you have a contract." And I said, I do indeed." And that was our first auction. And it was facilitated at a time when, people were probably being they weren't forced into having auctions, but it was becoming ever more apparent that people were going to have to sell equipment to settle their debts. This goes back to 1985, and it goes back to the extremely high interest rates. We talk about high interest rates today. These guys were just coming off of 23% interest rates, $3 wheat. Anything that could possibly go wrong in that time period had gone wrong. And agriculture was tough. It was really tough. And we turned out a lot of yard lights in the 80s and the 90s. And, some of those places never were able to come back to active farming. And just so happened that this was a guy that was dragging his feet about not wanting to have an auction. And eventually that lender convinced him that he should. And I was there in the right place at the right time and ended up doing that auction. Ended up being friends with that party that we had the auction for many years. Ended up doing a number of other auctions for that business. And actually ended up getting in front of all of the public in the northern Red River Valley, and they saw that we were good at what we did and that we had a product to offer and that we were bringing something new to the table that at the time others weren't doing.
So, with land auctions, everything's so regional, obviously, because you can't hook up to a piece of ground and drag it home.
Right.
But, back then, before online, before internet auctions, what was some of the differences when you go region to region within the northern Red River Valley or the Midwest? Like, did you see the same model piece of equipment bringing a lot different values in certain areas?
Well, interestingly enough, the equipment business is always about condition. The land businesses and the real estate business is always about location. The equipment business is always about condition. And, there's an old statement, conditions vary. And that has to do with just about everything in life. But when in those days you'd go from one place to another, equipment did vary quite a bit because there wasn't the machinery out there that we have today that handled rocks in different soil situations and everything. Now equipment's a lot more universal. Back then, you know, you had a specific group of equipment that worked in specific places, and you know, so there was a lot of difference. And you know, we even had to really concentrate our advertising because in the northern Red River Valley, we sold a lot of sugar beet equipment, we sold a lot of potato equipment, and the beet equipment had a little bit of a bigger venue that we could cater to. But when it came to potato equipment in the 80s, there were a lot of potato farmers that were going out of business, and that is truly kind of how we cut our teeth. And one of the first or second great big auctions that I had, I realized that, you know, we were doing more auctions for potato farmers than there probably were going to be potato farmers there to buy. And we needed to find a resource to sell this equipment. And at that time, you know, you didn't have mailing lists available on the computer. Well, there wasn't, you know, at that time, a computer was something that had two wheels on it that they used to show on Get Smart. You know, we didn't have a laptop where we could push a button and order a mailing list for potato growers in these 7 states. And so we physically had to sit down, and we sat down at that time. We obtained all the information we could, and you had the red book and the blue book, and those were seed production books, and those consisted of buyers and sellers of seed potatoes basically. And we sat down and we developed a handwritten mailing list where we had potential buyers of potato equipment from Maine to Washington, all through California, down into Arizona when there was a lot of Queen Creek potatoes, into northern Texas and into other places where they were even raising sweet potatoes in the Delta and whatnot. And we physically wrote all of those mailing lists out by hand and sent them off auction brochures. And those people started coming to these auctions. And, you know, it was instantaneous where we would get a guy that would call us and say, hey, we're flying in from Maine for your auction. Well, I was 18 or 19 years old and had an auction company, and we were selling potato equipment, and guys were flying in from Maine, and we were picking them up at the airport. And, you know, it was a pretty big deal. And, you know, our shoes got pretty big real fast, and we had to facilitate all those things, and we did. And we kept those people coming. And, you know, it wasn't so long ago, we sold a piece of equipment to a gentleman in Maine, and I called him, and I said, do you know so-and-so? He said, yeah, it's my grandpa. And we see that a lot, you know. Now it's been almost 40 years, so we're starting to work on second and third generation people that we're dealing with, but still selling equipment to some of those people in far stretched areas where we originally made handwritten mailing lists to. And so differences in equipment in areas was your original question. Every auction then and now is kind of like a snowflake. No two are identical. There are similar pieces of equipment, but nothing is identical. And that's, you know, something we'll touch on in a little bit in terms of pricing and how values are affected by the differences in specific models of equipment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I want to, David, can you imagine this, or Reed? Mm-hmm. This guy's 18 years old at the time.
Yeah.
And carrying and doing what he did and carried himself as mature as a 35-year-old man.
Yeah. Without Chat GPT.
And honestly, nobody knew, or very few people knew how old Dennis was because of he studied equipment, he knew it, and very mature. And I always thought that really impressed me. Mm-hmm. And then, like you said, you got people flying in around the country coming to one of his auctions, and mm-hmm. he's going to handle it, you know. So it's a pretty cool thing.
Well, just to have the mastery of a market to go from coast to coast and write down handwritten lists of potato buyers or potato equipment buyers.
Yeah.
I think you call that, it's not artificial intelligence, that's natural intelligence, I think.
Well, that and the directive was pretty clear. You could go be an auctioneer and pick up people at the airport and sell equipment and get a commission, or you could clean the barn and pick rocks. All good activities. Yeah. Believe it or not, still to this day, I still do all three of those things. But given the directive and the opportunity, I saw the opportunity to do auctions and to do them better. And again, that is the blessing that we had being a first generation auctioneer, was that we were able to grab the bull by the horns and try some things that other people didn't. You know, steam cleaning equipment. We used to put up flags and signs of all sorts at these auctions, you know, and I mean, we tried to make it as big of an event as we could, because it was the one and only auction that those people were probably ever going to have in their lifetime. And, you know, what was more so interesting about all this, and, you know, the fact that I was a young man probably was the best part of it all, because for a number of years, from about the middle of February straight through the middle of May each year, minus the Sundays, Easter Sunday and Good Friday, we would have typically 1 to 3 auctions a day just in that time stretch. I remember one spring day in the mid 90s where we had 5 auctions in one day. That means we had 3 crews on the road, each one of them doing a couple of different auctions here and there. And, you know, you look back to some of those things, and those were heydays. But, you know, we also, again, like I said earlier, turned out a lot of yard lights, but we still have a lot of clients and customers that we're doing work for through our monthly auctions, and guys that are buying and selling items through us that are names that we dealt with many, many years ago back then. So it's interesting. It's been a nice ride, and I'm very proud and pleased to have been along it and driving or riding, all the above.
So 5 auctions a day. How did you manage that? Your crew set it up and you'd come in and sell?
No, we had 3 specific crews. If we were going to do anything over 3 auctions, and if we were going to do anything over 2 auctions a day, if we did 2, we would try to use the same crew and do 1 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon. If we all of a sudden had 3 auctions, then we would have 2 crews, and we would do 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon with 2 separate crews, and we'd try to keep them about at least 100 miles apart. And then if we got into a position where we had to have 5, then we would bring on the 3rd crew, and then they would do 1 auction per day. And we had a lot of seasoned auctioneers and veterans in the business that worked with us at the time, and we had all the equipment to do it. I mean, we had trucks and trailers, and, you know, if you look at what we need today to run our business and our operation versus what we did back then, you know, we had 3 skid steers and 3 auction trucks and 3 clerk trailers, and everybody had a pickup with a toolbox. And I mean, there was just a lot of rolling stock that was involved in doing those auctions back then, and a lot of people. You know, we had a lot of people.
Yeah, I guess that brings me to my next topic here. What kind of transitions and like changes has the company seen these past 40 years, 30 years, 5 years? Yeah, just what big, obviously COVID being one of the more notable ones. But even before that, just kind of, you guys want to touch on some of that?
Well, we were always doing a lot of on-farm auctions, but we were able to parlay our knowledge into building one of the first and best consignment auctions in this region. And that would have been starting in the late 80s, early 90s. We had the Red River Valley Winter Shows building at our disposal in Crookston, and we had an annual auction there every March. And that turned into a huge event. And that was our big consignment event for the year. We would do that one, maybe a couple of other smaller ones in different other venues throughout the year, but that was kind of our signature event. And it's where we met a lot of people, where we laid a lot of the groundwork for things. And it's also where we learned how to do a successful consignment auction. Mm-hmm. Prior to that, there had been lots of people that had tried to have consignment auctions. And the 2 things that I saw as a young man that they were not doing correctly was, number 1, they weren't able to manage their sellers' expectations, because they were having smaller auctions and people were bringing in smaller lots, and they weren't able to get the people to accept the average of what all their items might bring. So I've got this 4020 tractor and I need $7,000 for it. Okay, what about that manure spreader? Well, do you think that's worth anything? Yeah, I said, should bring $2,500. Well, geez, you know, if I got $7,500 for both of them, I'd be happy. And that's how we learned to make our clients happy when we started doing these consignment auctions, was by getting them to add more and being able to average it out, and, you know, controlling their expectations and being honest with them. You know, that's one of the most difficult things that all of us still do today. All of our sales staff that's out on the road, and even each one of us sitting at this table that has some tenure at this, sometimes it's very hard to tell someone what they have is only worth X. And, you know, how many times that I've had to look a guy in the eye and say, when he says, well, I need 65,000 for this. And I would look at him and say, it's got to bring 49 first. And to try to get them trained into that mindset so that you don't have problems when it comes time for a buyer to come along and buy something. And then you've got situations with buyers and sellers, and you've got a guy that sold something that he thought was worth 65,000 and it brought 49,000, and he talks to his grandmother and his uncle and his brother, and so you really need to manage their expectations, and we've tried very hard over the years to do that, and it's something that I think we do a good job of. We've got a good staff of people that are doing this, young people, and they've all come up through the ranks, and they ask the questions. We have daily meetings and text messages and emails and whatnot about, hey, what do you think this is worth? I mean, if it's a no-brainer, it's a no-brainer, but there's a lot of stuff out there that needs to have 3-4 sets of eyes on it as to what we think this is worth. And so, that consignment auction that we developed all those years ago took us quickly into a big auction facility that we had along the freeway south of town here. And we had regularly scheduled auctions there, all of a consignment type and venue, and managed that facility and those auctions quite well. And that was, in its time and in its day, was the type of auction that people were going to and people were selling things at. And, that quickly evolved into where we are today with online consignment auctions. So there's been a ton of evolution in this business in the 4 decades that I've been around it. And we continue to see things that change. And, the only thing that you really need to be, if you're going to be successful in business, is the ability to adapt and change with the things that you're forced with and faced with when changes come about. And you brought up COVID. I was probably slower to go to timed online auctions than I should have been because we were having great success with live auctions. However, we saw the value in timed online auctions and had done a number of them by the time the pandemic came along. And then we instantly had to switch our clients over to online auctions overnight. And that was probably the strangest opportunity that came out of that whole situation, because people that had never been auction goers in the past all of a sudden became auction goers overnight because they weren't leaving their house, they weren't leaving their farm, they were looking at their phone, they were looking at their computer, and they still needed equipment. And then equipment shortages came in. Then auctions had equipment for people to buy. So it became a very popular place to buy and sell equipment, and kind of got, no pun intended, because when we talk about COVID, this doesn't really mean anything, but it kind of gave the auction business a shot in the arm too. And, that was one of the things that we sit back and look at and think about. Tom sitting across from me, his crew would go out, and he and Shane and John and Jake and all those guys, they would go out and set up all these auctions and get everything lined up in the mud and have everything in perfect order so we could drive by our truck and sell it. We never stopped doing that. We kept doing that for the online auctions so that when people came in the yard, it looked good, it was impressive. And then we started posting a video of everything to try to bring everything down to a little more of a personal level with that seller to the buyers so that they could get a look at them and meet them. And so a lot of things have changed in this business. The one thing that hasn't changed is, especially with us, we're still here to give good, honest service, to be quite upfront with people about what we think their items are worth, try to do our best job of valuing things, and get the word out to everybody that we possibly can, and to make sure that that equipment brings what it's worth. And that's what's kept people happy over the years.
Yeah. Does this translate over to like the land sales side of things too, or?
Yeah, when COVID hit, it was the regulatory body of auctioneers said no public auctions. Mm-hmm. And that was, I believe, in April of 2021. So anyone who was looking to have a land auction during that period had to go strictly online. And, we were already offering it. We were kind of the same situation where we did more live auctions with simulcast. We didn't do the timed online auctions as frequently as we do now, but that was kind of the switch in buying, was that buyers became a lot more comfortable. We were able to get enough information, complete information, so that buyers could have it all there, visit the property on their own time, inspect it, and then make their bidding decision versus getting up in front of people in a room and doing it. It's been very effective for our sellers. You know, both methods are still very effective.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a little more flexibility and a little, you know, some minor savings on expenses just without venues and some of that overhead
Right.
that falls on us or the sellers.
Yeah.
Another thing on the equipment side that I think has been created through the switch to more timed online auctions was the hybrid of live and online, where we have sellers that have a really nice line of equipment, but they also have a lot of smaller items in their shop and things that you just can't really get to in a live auction without multiple rings. So what we've done a few times is that we sell that line of equipment live with online simulcast while we have everything lotted out for a separate online auction that'll take place usually later in the week. So they come for that live auction, they have an opportunity to see all these lots that are going to sell on the online sale, which normally the live sale might go on a trailer and, you know, sold very quickly just so we can get to the main line either before or after the main line of equipment is sold. That's brought huge value to some of those smaller items, where they might go for $5 at a live sale. It might be go for 100 online, just because there's more people that are willing to bid on it that couldn't get to that auction and
Yeah.
are comfortable buying it sight
Yeah,
unseen.
and it's really helped. You know, farmers are busy people, and they can be driving their tractor or farming and doing their thing and bidding at the same time and buying. And they enjoy that. They do. They get an opportunity to come and get a week or two to come and look at the equipment they want to at their leisurely time or when it works for them.
Yep.
And then they have, you know, farmers are pretty smart people, you know, and they'll they look and see what things are worth, and they look at it, and yeah, then they'll bid comparably, you know.
Right.
Yeah, there are thousands of dollars worth of things in every building on every farm that can be converted into massive dollars if they're properly marketed. And that quick drive-by at the conventional live auction didn't always do that stuff justice, because, you know, maybe that farmer would have come to that auction to buy a tractor or a beet cart or a truck or whatever it might be, and there's 3 pallets of beet apron there, and he's like, God, I didn't prepare to come and buy that today. I could really use that, but now I got to drive back here and get it. So now when it's there for them on an online auction, they make a calculated decision to buy it, make the return trip to pick it up, and all of a sudden it becomes a purpose rather than an afterthought. And that's what's really helped some of that stuff bring big money and calculated through. And then, of course, with supply chain issues and stuff like that, some of these parts have gotten very, very valuable.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. With COVID, did it make it more difficult to find people to consign stuff like that? I'm sure Tom could kind of touch on this.
You know,
a little bit.
I don't know if it made it more difficult. It was the slow effect of the amount of equipment that was available to find. You know, first off from the dealers, and it trickled down. You know, I don't know, Dennis, what are your thoughts on that a little bit?
Well, the good news is that we pretty well had our spring lined up when that all came along and changed in 2020. So
Yeah.
we pretty much had the die cast and everything was out there that we needed to deal with. So we went ahead and dealt with it. And then, of course, summer came along and everybody saw that auctions were still going in full swing. And, you know, they saw that people were able to navigate around and look at that stuff. And even though they were online auctions, I think that they were one of the social events that people could attend, even though it was on the computer, but they could get out, go look at the equipment. They were allowed to pull it home, you know, and so forth and so on. I mean, I just think back to some of that right now, and I think about how, you know, how ridiculous that sounds to say they were allowed to pull it home.
Right.
you know,
Right.
but there was some times there where, you know, and of course that was a spring where there was flooding issues too. And so, you know, Minnesota had mandated that, you know, workers, unless they were working for a company that was essential, couldn't work. Agriculture was essential. So as an agricultural auction company, we were able to put workers out there. And Tom called me one morning and he said, I can't come to work today. And I'm like, well, why is that? He said, well, they closed the road at Oslo and there's too much water on the road and won't let me through. And I said, Tom, you've driven through 6 inches of water 10 years in a row to get to I-29. And he said, yeah, but he said the patrolman was never sitting right there telling me I couldn't do it. So, you know, not only did we have, you know, you can't go to work because of this, but you can't go to work because of that. And, well, unfortunately, all the you can't go to work because of this and that put people into a situation where they had to buy extra equipment, they had to buy extra parts, they had to get things, and instantaneously, auctions were a place where they were able to find it.
Yeah, and you did give me a letter, so I could travel over state lines too. Then it was okay for COVID.
Yeah, touching on that, how did all this stuff affect the market, the auction market, farming market, all those types of?
Well, it increased exposure. So, like we said earlier, people that, you know, we knew for years that we were missing a big segment of this audience because they were people that typically bought from retailers or always bought new equipment or didn't sell things by auction. They traded them in or whatever the case may be. And we knew that we were missing a good portion of that audience. And we used to just say, well, they're not auction people. But I would say that, you know, slowly a very high percentage of those people that were not auction people have become auction people. And, you know, interestingly enough, we would get always a group of, you know, certain age people would say, I don't want to be on the computer and I don't want to bid on that. I just want to call in my bid. I want to come to the auction. When are we going to start doing live auctions again? And, you know, and it was the same group of guys all the time. And the day later, they'd call you back and say, hey, I'm looking at this thing on the computer here. My wife set this up. This is pretty slick. And, you know, you were slowly converting people. And now I think to some degree, not only are they happy with it, I don't know that, you know, you'd ever get some of them to come back to a live auction.
No, I think the biggest thing for the live part is just the social activity of it and neighbors seeing neighbors. But otherwise, yeah, the online thing is just fantastic.
Yeah. Awesome. I guess go on to our next segment here.
Yeah, what do we got coming up? Maybe we should talk about some of the
Yeah.
events coming up. And got a big Alaris consignment auction coming up last week of July, and a part of that's our Customer Appreciation Day on July 26th. We are having a live auction where all the items that are going to be auctioned off, proceeds will be donated to North Dakota 4-H. So that'll run along in conjunction with our inspection day, or actual Alaris consignment auction, which will close the next day.
Yeah, looking forward. Hope a lot of people come to that, and looking forward to seeing some faces and
Yeah,
people getting people together. It's going to be a good deal.
Kind of piggybacks off our conversation about the social aspect of live auctions. That's what we missed, so we just kind of had to create our own here with this appreciation day to show our customers that we're still out and still want to get in front of people and
Oh yeah.
and do some good in the community.
Still active. Yeah.
Yeah, remember that, folks. You know, you've all seen that we're doing this benefit auction for 4-H and whatnot, but it is a Customer Appreciation Day, and you are the customers that we do appreciate, be you buyers, sellers, bidders from auctions, people that have attended in the past or have bid online. It's Customer Appreciation Day. We want to see you there. We want to meet you. We want to shake your hand. Thank you for the business you've done with us and encourage you to do more business with us and show you just exactly how auctions can work to your benefit, and in particular, our auction.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of nice equipment there to look at too at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
And a free meal. Everybody likes that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Good conversation to be had.
What are you cooking, Tom?
Well, I think we're going to have auction food, not football food. I think we're going to have some pork sandwiches and some bars and some coffee, and I think it's going to be pretty good.
All right. Well, as soon as I see your chef hat on, I'll come running.
Well, I don't know. I can cook okay, but maybe I think there's probably better people that can do it.
You're going to hand the torch to somebody else?
Yeah, we're
Literally
gonna-
hand the torch?
Let the professionals do it, as they say. Yeah. Yeah, then what did we got a Montana sale coming up again?
Yes, we've got a large inventory or equipment reduction auction for the East End Colony in Havre, Montana. We've made a few trips out to Havre over the years to do auctions. Been a great area to do auctions in. They updated their combines, and they've got 470 series or 570 series combines. Pardon me, there's 49770s and 19870 on that auction. Great group of heads. There's a Tadano crane, nice late model case skid steer. There's quite a few other items in that auction as well. A nice Great Plains drill and an air seeder. That's going to be quite an auction. That's coming up soon. The Rich Marjoram auction is coming up. Rich has been a acquaintance of Tom and mine for many years, and we're doing a retirement auction for he and his wife Linda at Pembina. That's coming up in mid-July. Very low-houred equipment. There's a very nice Magnum tractor on there and an Ashland scraper and an Amity air drill that haven't done much of anything at all. Nice tri-axle truck. Got a, like David said earlier, really nice July consignment auction coming up. We got some late model tractors. There's a 485 case on there that only has 3,900 hours. We got a skid steer with 38 hours on it.
Right.
And just a big bunch of equipment, and we're busy right now putting more and more and more of that together, and the guys are out on the road putting together all their consignments and getting things lined up for that. Still got room for your equipment for that auction, and David's got a farmstead auction coming up at Ada. Gosh, I think we're missing an auction or two in there too. I think there's some other stuff that we've got going on, and you know, the nice thing about it is you can find out all about these things on our website, and there's good photos there and good opportunities for you to look, but you're still able to go out and take a look at things firsthand and talk to any one of our reps about any of the things that you want to sell or that you want to buy.
Yeah, and then don't forget about August, sale too. A lot of times people don't get their stuff ready in time for the alerts, and August is still a very, very big consignment month for us also. Mm-hmm. And our regular consignment is always the last week of every month. So that's just something to put on the calendar and keep it in mind.
Also, big shout out to Dennis's son Jake getting married on Saturday. Got that coming up.
There's gonna be two people sitting in the front of that church with big smiles the whole time, and that's Dennis and Sue, and it's gonna be a great celebration, I'm sure.
I was thinking you were talking about the caterer and the hotel manager.
Well, they're gonna be all right
There'll
too.
be more than two people with smiles.
They're gonna be really happy too. Yep.
All right.
No, he's got Amber's a great lady there, and Jake's a very lucky man, so that's good.
Yeah, we're proud of Jake. He's stepped up and done a lot of things with the auction company here, and of course, most people that are involved with the auction company know him and know what his role is, and he's heavily involved with coordinating the auctions and getting all the photos taken and the websites put together for the bidding sites and whatnot. So, yeah, we're excited about that. So, yeah, it's a big week all the way around. Lots of stuff going on, and we've just got done, something to bring up here. We just got done with a rash of county fairs and 4th of July celebrations and things like that. And, those events are the traditional cloth of our small communities here, and just got to see a lot of people in the last 2-3 weeks here and reunite with a lot of people and see folks out and whatnot, and really good to see these people at these Independence Day parades, the county fair, the premium auction at the county fair. I know that Andrew did one over in Polk County at the Fertile Fair. I did one up at Pembina County in Hamilton, and just really good to get out and see everybody and deal with businesses. And the nice thing about doing those premium auctions is you couldn't find a better group of future clients. You've got future clients all the way from 7 years old to 18 years old, and hoping to keep them in the agricultural community and keep them involved with the things that they're doing in 4-H and with the county fairs and whatnot. And look back to even when I started doing those auctions and see some of those young people now that are actively farming, and that's interesting to watch. It's really nice to watch things unfold in your community.
Yeah, for sure. And I know we have Larimore. We're going to be over there this weekend. Mark will be there, and then I'll be over in Marshall County Fair next week also. So, yeah, great fairs, like Dennis said. Great opportunity to get out and visit and see some people.
I think Shane's heading to the Roseau.
Yep,
Roseau
that's right.
County Fair coming up as well.
Yeah, he'll be there on Tuesday. So it's it's nice to be out and about.
And Reed, shout out to you for putting on this podcast, episode 1.
Yeah.
I think going forward in the future, we'll bring in some outside guests and get some additional insights. And yeah, no, this is a lot of fun. So
Yeah, I'm
Thank you for
excited
putting
to
this
see
on.
where everything goes. I feel like this is a pretty successful first episode.
Yeah, I
got a little
think
work
we
to
all
do and
survived it.
whatnot,
I think
yeah.
I was a little nervous, but I don't know. I think we'll do okay. I think we'll do all right.
Yeah. It's weird getting used to these microphones in your face. That's the biggest thing for me, but
Yeah, I don't know. Dennis is talking about being a pilot or something too. I don't know with the headsets, but yeah.
Well, the headset, the microphone, you know. I'm no stranger, neither is David, to being in front of a microphone. We just don't get to do it as often as we used to. So, you know, if my wife were here right now, she'd be pointing at her watch.
Yeah.
I don't know how to stop.
Yeah, that's great. I don't know.
yeah. And with that, I don't know if we want to plug the auctions again.
Yeah, just look forward to our Alaris and the Customer Appreciation Day on the 26th of July. Would really like to see everybody there.
Yeah.
Come out and
Yeah.
I think it starts, the customer appreciation starts at 5 o'clock, and then the live auction is to follow at 6. So with that,
One
Better-
last thing, Reed.
Yeah.
There's still time for sponsors to step up and donate items to that auction,
Yeah.
so that we have some items to sell at that live auction for the 4-H of North Dakota, or the North Dakota 4-H Foundation. So make some donations, whatever size they are. We'll auction off those items and get those funds to those kids so that they can use them for their expansion and their future endeavors with farming. And yeah, I think it's been a successful little visit here, and I'm looking forward to doing it again, and
Yeah.
really looking forward to the three of you leading us out with that same intro music that you brought us in with.
yeah.
A 1, 2, 3, 4.